Hi there, and thank you for tuning in. Maybe it is a little bit crazy to do a video about how to shoot in manual mode on the Nikon D4, because I'm sure if you got a camera like this, you are an experienced photographer. But maybe you're coming from another camera system, maybe you just want to have a brush up, or maybe you just don't want to read the manual. Then this video is for you. First thing you need to do is, of course, to take the camera into manual mode. You have 4 modes to choose from. Program mode, which is sort of the D4 name for automated. Then you have shutter priority, aperture priority, and then manual mode. So just turn the rear command down while you hold down the mode key, like that. Once you're in manual mode, you control the shutter speed on the rear command dial. You can see now it's changing here. And provided you have a lens that allows you control the aperture here on the front command dial. That's really all there is to it in terms of controlling the light that hits the sensor. Controlling the ISO, there's a dedicated button for that here at the bottom left of your camera. And you can also see there is an LCD here that shows the current value. And you change the values by simply holding down the ISO key and then just turning the rear command dial. You can see like this. Maybe it's easier to see if I switch on the light in the LCD. Very, very simple here. You also can change between auto ISO, where the camera takes control, and manual ISO, if I can call it like that, which is what I'm showing here. You can switch on the front command dial. If you turn that one, you will see that it flicks between auto ISO and ISO, right? So that's the way, if you want the camera to take control and you just want to control the shutter speed and the aperture, then you can leave it in ISO auto and it will take care of the ISO value for you. And that means that to the extent that it can, it will try to find an ISO value so that your camera is correctly exposing the picture correctly. Otherwise, what happens is that when you put the camera in manual mode, you're bypassing the metering system of the camera and you're controlling all 3 values. So the camera, of course, still has an opinion whether you're doing okay in terms of exposure. It's shown here in the bar. Here on the top LCD, you can also see it if you press the information screen. And finally, you can see it in the viewfinder. You'll see here it is on the information screen, and the viewfinder, it's to the right in the viewfinder. That's a little bit unusual for the D4 relative to many of the other Nikon cameras like the 750 or the 700. The metering scale is in the right side of the viewfinder. So that's really all there is to it. If you don't have a lens and a camera that can talk to each other, of course the D4 can talk to many lenses, but if the lens has no CPU contacts, those are the contacts you see here. If you have a vintage lens, for instance, first of all, you cannot see which lens is mounted, and secondly, you cannot see what aperture the lens is at. So if you have a lens like that, let me show you how you can set it up. Here I have the 135mm f2.8, a wonderful lens, but as you can see, it has absolutely no CPU contacts. None at all whatsoever, right? So let's see if we can mount this one and get it to work still. But it requires a bit of configuration because you have to tell the camera the focal length of the lens and also what is the smallest f-stop number it will go to. So going into the menu system, the setup menu, one of the last items you'll find in the menu system says non-CPU lens data. And if you go into that one, you can actually define available lenses you have in your lens collection. And here, if I just set up lens number 1, you can see I can set it up so that it has a focal length of 6, 8, 13, and so on. I need to go to 135. Let me just, whoop, that was. And then the maximum aperture, that was 2.8, as I recall it, like that. And then we're good to go. You just need to say done. And then we have selected CPU and lens number 1. So I just took a picture, a hopeless picture, but that doesn't really matter. You can see here f2.8 and 135mm, that is correct, but it has a little asterisk next to it. And that's because the values are not read from a CPU sitting on the lens, but you have set it up. So you need to remember every time you mount a new lens to tell the camera which lens it is you're mounting. I always forget to do that, I must quite admit, and therefore I have a lot of EXIF information in my files where the focal length and the aperture is completely off. But the way it works is simply that the camera knows where a little lever is. So when it knows the maximum aperture, it also knows exactly where on the scale it actually is. And as you can see here, if we look at the number up here, and maybe you can see that together with the number down here, 5.6, 8, 11, 16, 22, and so on. So that you can actually see both here and also in the rear LCD. You can see it up here to the top right. There was one thing I forgot to mention, that is your shutter speed when you selected that one. If you go to, now I'm at 1/3 of a second, right? And then I go to a full second, 2 seconds, and so on. If you continue, you can go all the way up to 30. And after that is bulb mode. And in bulb mode, you of course will have light flowing into the sensor as long as you're holding down the shutter. So as soon as I let go, the exposure ends. And you can see it takes, even though the D4 has much more computing power than, for instance, the D700, it takes quite a long time for it to process the data. Also, if you look in the viewfinder, you will see exactly the same description here. That's really all there is to shooting in manual mode, both with a lens that has CPU contacts, as this one, and one without CPU contacts. But please remember, if you're shooting with a vintage lens without CPU contacts, then you need to remember to select which lens it is that you have, otherwise your EXIF information will be off. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to drop them in the comment field. I'll be happy to see if I can make another video where I address your questions and comments. But for now, as always, happy shooting, take care, bye bye.